When a person does not know exactly what they want, almost any outcome starts to feel acceptable. And that is one of the main reasons so many people spend years without seeing their dreams become real. Not because they lack potential, not because they were born without ability, and not because their dreams were too big. Very often, the issue is not lack of strength. The issue is lack of clarity. Most people say they want a better life. They want peace, prosperity, fulfillment, stability, freedom, growth, but they want all of it in a vague way, without definition, without a clear image, without direction. And a mind that receives no clear direction cannot work at full power. It becomes scattered. It becomes confused. It gets pulled by whatever shows up. And when that happens, life stops being built with intention and starts being lived on autopilot. Napoleon Hill understood something that is still true today. Every major result begins with a definite desire. Not a weak desire, not a passing wish, but a clear desire, emotionally strong, repeated with conviction. Because when the mind knows where it is supposed to go, it begins to organize energy, attention, and behavior around that direction. But when everything is blurry, any distraction can steal your focus. Any difficulty feels bigger. Any delay feels like a reason to give up. That is why so many people feel tired and frustrated, even while staying busy all the time. They do a lot, but they are not necessarily moving towards something they have clearly defined. They are in motion, but not in direction. And there is a huge difference between being busy and being aligned, between reacting to whatever the day brings and consciously building the life you actually want to live. The turning point begins when a person stops merely wishing and starts giving shape to what they want. When they stop living with loose dreams and begin creating a clear vision of what they intend to build. And that is exactly where three powerful tools come in: mental visualization, written goals, and a dream board. These practices are not meant to feed fantasy. They are meant to train the mind. They are meant to give clarity to desire, strengthen direction, and keep alive before your eyes and inside your heart the reality you are choosing to build. Because every achievement happens twice. First inside, then outside. First as an image, then as a decision. First as inner conviction, then as visible result. Many people try to change their lives without first changing the way they think about that life. They want to harvest a new reality without first planting a new vision in their own minds. They want something different on the outside, but they keep feeding the same old thoughts, the same fears, the same doubts, the same limited identity. And while the inside remains tied to the past, the outside rarely changes in a lasting way. That is why clarity is not a small detail. Clarity is the foundation. When you do not define what you want, your mind remains vulnerable to distraction, doubt, and self-sabotage. The goal feels too abstract, too distant, and whatever has no shape rarely creates deep commitment. That is why so many people begin with excitement, but quit halfway through. Not because they did not truly want it, but because they did not yet have a target clear enough to sustain consistency. Think about how many people wake up each day only to react to whatever appears. They react to messages, bills, problems, moods, fear of the future, pressure from the world around them. They spend their lives putting out fires, and little by little, they lose the feeling that they are actually leading their own lives. When that happens, the dream becomes distant, not necessarily because it disappeared, but because it stopped being fed. Napoleon Hill spoke about the importance of knowing exactly what you want, and that is a question many people avoid answering honestly. What do I truly want? What does the life I desire actually look like? What do I want to change? What do I want to build? Who do I need to become to sustain that new season of life? These questions require honesty. They require clarity. They require responsibility. Because the moment you define what you want with precision, you can no longer hide behind confusion. As long as everything stays vague, nothing seems to demand real commitment. But once the goal becomes clear, awareness increases. You begin to see more clearly what you are doing against yourself. You begin to notice which thoughts do not match the future you say you want, which habits weaken your direction, which choices are in conflict with the reality you claim to desire. That is where transformation stops being a beautiful idea and starts touching real life. Because a definite desire does not only inspire, it also confronts. It reveals the distance between the dream and your current posture. It reveals the patterns that need to be left behind. It shows that many times the problem is not only in circumstances, but in the lack of inner direction. When the vision becomes clear, the mind starts operating differently. Focus improves. Attention stops spreading in every direction. Certain distractions lose power. A person begins to see more clearly where their energy needs to go. And that matters deeply, because much of emotional exhaustion comes from living without a clear center, from running hard without knowing where you are really headed. Mental visualization. This is where mental visualization becomes powerful. Visualization is not just thinking positive thoughts. It is not closing your eyes and imagining something pretty for a few seconds. Real visualization is inner training. It is teaching your mind to recognize more clearly the reality you want to build. Many people spend the whole day visualizing the worst without even noticing. They imagine failure, lack, rejection, embarrassment, delay, loss, humiliation. They replay negative scenes in their minds over and over, and then they wonder why they feel so insecure, so drained, and so far from the life they want. The mind never stays neutral. It is always receiving images. The real question is what kind of images you have been repeating inside yourself. When you practice visualization the right way, you begin replacing inner chaos with direction. You start imagining a goal happening with clarity. A more organized life, a more prosperous season, better health, a desired home, a calmer mind, more meaningful work, a healthier relationship. And along with that picture, you begin to see yourself as someone moving toward that reality. That point matters. Visualization is not only about showing you what you want to have. It also reveals who you need to become. Maybe you want prosperity, but need discipline. Maybe you want peace, but need to let go of certain inner conflicts. Maybe you want a higher life, but you are still feeding thoughts that belong to your old self. Visualization becomes stronger when it stops being vague. It is not enough to think, "I want a better life." It is more powerful to imagine the scene, where you are, how you feel, how your routine has changed, how you speak, how you respond, what exists in that environment, what changed inside you to sustain that new reality. The clearer the vision, the stronger it becomes. But there is one decisive element in this process: emotion. Because an image without emotion usually passes through the mind without much depth. But an image joined with faith, gratitude, hope, and conviction begins to mark your inner world much more deeply. Emotion is what gives life to visualization. Emotion is what makes the image feel real. This is exactly where many people fail. They visualize for a few moments, but in a cold, rushed, superficial way. Then they spend the rest of the day feeding fear, doubt, and negativity, so the mind receives mixed messages. On one side, the image of the dream. On the other side, the emotion of fear. And most of the time, the dominant emotional pattern wins. That is why when you visualize, you should not only see the result, you should feel the meaning of that result. The peace of leaving behind a season of pressure. The joy of living with more stability. The gratitude of seeing your life enter a new chapter. The security of realizing that what once felt impossible no longer feels so far away. Napoleon Hill spoke about faith as a state of mind that must be cultivated. And that cultivation happens when thought and emotion move in the same direction. When you see inwardly and feel inwardly, your posture toward life begins to change. You become more careful with your thoughts. You begin to understand that you cannot feed images of failure all day and still expect a life of fulfillment. Little by little, you realize the battle begins in what you strengthen within. Writing your goals writing enters this process as a way of bringing order to the mind. As long as the dream lives only in thought, it can change all the time. It can lose strength. It can get mixed up with other desires. It can disappear in the middle of a busy life. But when you write it down, it starts to take shape. It leaves the world of abstraction and enters the world of commitment. Writing forces clarity. It forces you to move from vague desire into specific intention. And that changes everything. Because a mind that receives clear direction responds differently. When you write what you want, you are telling yourself, this is what I am pursuing. This is what I want to build. This is the direction my life needs to move in. Many people have sincere desires, but they never put them on paper. And because of that, they live with the feeling that they want a lot, but cannot organize their own energy. They think about many things at once. They shift focus too easily. They begin something today, quit tomorrow, feel motivated for a few days, then fall back into the same old scattered pattern. Writing helps interrupt that cycle because it turns desire into definition. But writing by itself is not enough. The goal needs to be clear. It needs to be positive. It needs to carry emotional truth. It is not helpful to write empty or generic phrases. It becomes powerful when you define what you want in a simple, direct, meaningful way. Instead of focusing on what you want to avoid, focus on what you want to build. Instead of writing, I do not want to struggle financially anymore, it is far more powerful to say, I am building a financially stable, organized, and prosperous life. Instead of simply saying, I want to change, define the change. What exactly do you want to live? What does that change represent? Peace, security, freedom, growth, fulfillment. Writing becomes even stronger when it stops being a one-time act and becomes a repeated practice. This is not something you do once and forget. When you reread your goals often, you are teaching your mind not to lose focus. In a world filled with noise, that matters greatly. Because if you do not consciously reinforce your direction, the environment will try to fill that space with fear, comparison, exhaustion, and distraction. The dream board comes in as visual reinforcement for that direction. The mind responds quickly to what it sees often. Images speak directly to emotion. In just seconds, they can carry a sense of future, possibility, and purpose. That is why a well-built dream board can become a powerful tool. The problem is that many people create a board that looks beautiful but feels empty. They choose random images simply because they look desirable, but there is no real connection with what they actually want to live. And then the board loses its power because it does not truly speak to the inner world. A powerful dream board is not merely decorative. It is intentional. Each image should represent something meaningful. A home that symbolizes peace. A scene that reflects prosperity. A picture connected to health, family, stability, fulfillment, contribution, discipline, or life purpose. The goal is not to collect pictures. The goal is to keep before your eyes a constant reminder of the life you are choosing to build. Used in the right way, the dream board does not replace action, but it protects vision. It helps keep your dreams from disappearing in the middle of daily life. Instead of only reacting to the present, you begin keeping the future you want visible. And that changes the way you think, feel, and decide. That is why these three practices become so powerful when they work together. Visualization acts on the inner level. Writing creates clarity, and commitment. The dream board keeps direction alive before your eyes. You think, you write, and you see. And when the mind receives the same message through different channels, conviction grows stronger. The dream stops being something you visit once in a while and starts occupying real space in your mental routine. Direction becomes more constant. Identity begins to change. Certain habits start to bother you. Certain thoughts no longer seem to match who you are trying to become. Little by little, your inner life begins to reorganize itself. But none of this works without repetition. Daily repetition is what turns an idea into mental conditioning. It is not a single emotional moment that changes your life. It is what you reinforce until it starts becoming part of you. Many people get excited for 2 or 3 days, do the practice, feel hopeful, and then abandon everything. Once they stop, they return to being ruled by the same old thoughts. And then they say it did not work. In truth, they did not stay with it long enough for the mind to be trained. The mind learns through repetition. In the same way that someone strengthened fear, lack, insecurity, and doubt over many years through repeated thinking, they will also need repetition to build faith, clarity, focus, and direction. One inspired day is not enough. You have to keep returning to the target. That repetition also protects your mind, because the world is constantly trying to steal your clarity. News, problems, pressure, opinions, fatigue, comparison, distractions. All of it competes for your attention. If you do not consciously reinforce what you want to build, something else will occupy that space. Of course, there are mistakes that weaken this whole process, and recognizing them matters. One of them is inconsistency. A person practices for a few days, but does not remain steady. Another is visualizing for a few minutes, and then spending the rest of the day buried in fear, complaining, and negativity. Another is turning everything into empty fantasy, expecting pretty images and nice words to solve a life that still lacks a change in posture. There is also the mistake of impatience. Many people quit too soon because they want immediate external results without respecting the fact that transformation begins inside first. There is one more very quiet mistake: wanting a new reality without deeply believing you are able to sustain it, because it is not enough to want the dream. At some level, you must begin to see yourself as someone capable of living it. If the image of the dream grows, but your identity remains small, a conflict is created, and that conflict weakens consistency. That is why visualization, writing, and a dream board must walk together with inner alignment. Clarity, emotion, repetition, and action need to move in the same direction. When that happens, the mind stops working against you and begins cooperating with you. In practical terms, all of this can be applied through a simple daily ritual. You do not need hours. 10 to 15 minutes a day, done with presence, can already begin producing meaningful change. The first step is to create a moment of silence. Breathe deeply. Step out of the rushed pace of the day for a moment. A restless mind will struggle to connect deeply with what it wants to build. Then visualize. Close your eyes and imagine one important goal already unfolding in your life. See the scene. Notice the details. Feel the peace, the gratitude, the security, and the joy of that new season. Do not only visualize what you have, visualize who you are becoming. Then write. Take a notebook and record your main goal in a clear and positive way. It can be one short sentence, but it should be true. Something that reminds you of your direction. Something that strengthens your inner decision. Then look at your dream board. Observe each image as a reminder of the life you are choosing to create. Do not look at it mechanically. Look at it with presence. Let it refresh your vision. Let your mind absorb that direction. When this kind of practice is maintained with consistency, it begins to produce signs. And it is important to notice those signs so you do not assume nothing is happening. One of the first signs is clarity. You begin thinking with less confusion. Your main goal starts occupying a firmer place inside you. Another sign is that certain distractions lose power. Things that used to steal your energy start feeling less important. You begin protecting your time, your focus, and your peace more carefully. The way you respond to difficulties also begins to change. Not because life suddenly becomes easy, but because there is more direction inside you. And when there is direction, even discomfort is interpreted differently. Instead of feeling like the end, it starts to feel like part of the process. Another important sign is discomfort with old patterns. Certain habits, thoughts, and behaviors start clashing with the person you are trying to become. That may feel uncomfortable, but it is a good sign. It means your mind is no longer accepting with ease what it once accepted without resistance. Maybe one of the strongest signs is this: you begin feeling less controlled by chance. Challenges still exist. Hard days still exist. But your life no longer feels completely loose and directionless. A stronger sense of purpose begins to rise. A stronger sense of construction. A stronger sense of movement. And in the end, this is the great truth. Many dreams do not disappear because they are impossible. They disappear because they were never clearly defined, consistently fed, and sustained in the mind long enough to become real direction. Many lives stay the same not because of lack of desire, but because of lack of vision. People want change. They want prosperity. They want something greater, but they keep handing their minds over to fear, distraction, and confusion. And a mind without direction rarely builds an extraordinary life. Maybe what is missing is not more effort, but more clarity. Maybe you do not need to run harder. Maybe you need to stop for a moment and define truthfully what you want. Give shape to the dream. Write it down. Visualize it. Keep that chosen direction before your eyes. Because whatever you feed inside yourself day after day will sooner or later begin influencing the way you live. If you continue living without a target, the world will keep deciding for you. But the moment your mind begins to see with clarity, feel with conviction, and repeat with consistency the life you want to build, something changes. And that change, silent at first, can become the starting point of an entirely new reality. So let me leave you with one simple but powerful decision. Do not finish this process without choosing one main goal for your life right now. Write that goal. Visualize that goal. And if necessary, create a dream board that reminds you every day of the life you are deciding to build. Because for the person who does not know what they want, anything will do. But for the person who defines their destiny with clarity, the mind stops wandering and starts cooperating. If this message spoke to you, write in the comments what dream or goal you are choosing to take seriously from this day forward. That may mark the beginning of a new chapter in your life. Subscribe to Prosperity Laws, turn on notifications, and stay with me for the next videos. Because here we talk about mind, direction, prosperity, and inner transformation with depth. And remember this: every great achievement begins within, first as vision, then as decision, and finally as reality.